Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Sunday video where I show the hottest Golden Age comics of the week, and it's going to be an interesting list. There was a massive sale that happened on Comic Connect, so I'm basically going to be looking at the top 10 biggest sales on Comic Connect, and it was a collection that was sold from a Hollywood celebrity, Ruben Blades, and he amassed amazing collection. I was actually surprised that when they did this auction, the way that they did it, it was basically his collection. The whole auction was his collection, and they did it over a period of like 3-4 days. It's just a massive sale. I would have recommended that they kind of split it out, because what I noticed was there were some sales that were really under, just like basically bargain, massive bargains. And then there was sales that went for new records. And I think what it was is people just didn't have enough money to absorb this massive collection. There's just not enough buyers, for this kind of high level stuff. And the buyers at that high level stuff were like, oh, should I get this one or this one? It's like, action one or, so I think there was a bit of that. So this was a very interesting sale. And I'm going to get into it right now. So number 10 on the list is Detective Comics number 29. This is from DC Comics 1939. It's a Bob Kane cover. It is the second appearance of Batman. It is actually his, second cover appearance of Batman and his third overall appearance. And it's also the first appearance of Dr. Death. And it's a cool cover, actually. I almost think this is as cool, or if not cooler, than Batman's first appearance. So just a really cool cover. He's flying through the window, got this crazy doctor on it. It's a pretty cool cover. Now, this was a 6.0 restored copy that sold for $44,850. This is actually a pretty massive new record. The previous record for this book was $18,100 in December of 2018. So almost a little bit like 2.5 times what it sold for in the past. So massive record. This book has actually been on sort of an uptrend lately. There was actually a restored 5.0 that sold for $36,000 in June of 2024. So, that was a big sale compared to a 2018 sale, but still, that 5.0 sold for like $8,000 less than this one. So this was a very strong sale. Now, there's no Blue Label comparative, but a Blue Label 5.0 sells for $102,000. And that was the last sale was in June of 2024. So it can give you kind of a sense of how expensive a book this is. There are 78 of these on the census, and 42 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 9 on the list is Detective Comics number 31. This is from DC Comics 1939. It is another Bob Kane cover. It's got a whole bunch of cool things going on for it. It is just a classic cover. Neil Adams did an homage to it later on. Just a really cool Batman over the mountain kind of cover. But it's got the first appearance of the monk, first appearance of the bat plane, first appearance of the batarang, and it has the first appearance of Julie Madison. Now, Julie Madison probably doesn't ring a bell for most people, and it didn't even ring for me, but it's actually Batman's first love interest. So another first. Just a cool book. This was a 6.0 restored book that sold for $49,450. Now, that is actually down. The previous record for this book was set back in September of 2022 for $57,600. So this is actually quite significantly down. Now, this book has been kind of on a downward trend, because that previous record back in 2022 was actually kind of maybe a little bit of an outlier sale, because there was a 7.5 restored that sold like 10 days after that, like 6.0 that sold back in 2022 for $45,999. So this one's, it's really hard to say. It's these books that sell really rarely for big money. It's really hard to judge what they should be valued at. Now, if a 7.5 sold for less, I think that kind of says that this was actually not bad of a price, and maybe that 2022 sale was a bit of an outlier. Hard to really say. Really hard to say. This one is one of those books that doesn't exchange hands very often, because people kind of hoard it. They don't want to sell this one. This is definitely one that is in most people's personal collections and doesn't leave that personal collection. There's 107 of these on the census, and 63 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 8 on the list is Wonder Woman #1 from DC Comics 1942. It's H.G. Peter cover. It's the first appearance of Mars, but it's also the retelling of the origin story for Wonder Woman. It gets into a lot of the mythology behind the character. It's also the first time that Wonder Woman gets her own title. So that's kind of a major book. Definitely a cool one. This was a 6.5 Blue Label. I have to say Blue Label. So many restored books on this list, actually. This was, and it sold for $51,000. The previous record, actually, this one was way down. Wonder Woman not doing so well. The previous record was back in March of 2022 for $73,471. So this is down like $22,000, like 50% basically. Now, this book has kind of been on a downward trend because the last sale for this book was back in November of 2022. So it actually had dropped within that same year for $63,000. Now this is down another $12,000 from that sale. So not been a very good trend for Wonder Woman, which is sad. I do love this book. There are 205 of these on the census, and 134 of them are Blue Labels. Number 7 on the list is Detective Comics #1. This is from DC Comics, 1937. It is a Vince Sullivan comic cover, and it is actually the first DC comic, like where it was actually DC producing its own stuff by itself. It's also the first appearance of Slam Bradley, and it's got this great kind of Fu Manchu-ish cover. It's kind of a cool cover. Now, this was a 2.0 green label that sold. It was a green label because it has a married centerfold. It's actually a complete copy, but married centerfold, and that gets a green label. And it sold for $52,900. There's no previous sales for this book. There's only one green label actually on the census, and this is it. And there's no previous sales. Now, the only thing that I have to compare it to is what a 4.5, like much higher grade, Blue Label sold for. And there was a sale back in August of 2018. So this book doesn't sell that often. So there was a book, Blue Label, 4.5, so twice the grade, complete book, no green label, nice Blue Label, and it sold for $38,500. So this is a massive sale. Usually you expect green labels to be about half what a Blue Label would be, but this is a much lower grade, and it sold for much more than that higher grade Blue Label. So very strong sale for this book, and maybe the reason for that is you just don't see it. It's a really rare book. There's only 37 of these on the census, and 17 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 6 on the list is Sensation Comics number 1. This is from DC Comics, 1942. It's a H.G. Peter cover, and it is the second appearance of Wonder Woman, first cover appearance of Wonder Woman, and it's her first solo series. Now, and it's also the first appearance of Wildcat, Mr. Terrific, and the Grey Ghost. So lots of firsts for this one as well. This was a 7.0 that sold, and it sold for $57,500, which is way down. This book really was a bit of a steal. Maybe the steal of the week, because this was such a low price, because the previous record for this book was set back in April of 2023 for $90,000. So almost half what it had sold for in the past. Now, there was a 6.0 blue label that, just to give you a comparative of where this would kind of normally lie, that sold back in, there was actually 2 sales, one in August and one in December of 2023 for $56,000 and $58,000. So this book kind of, in a 6.0 would normally go for around $57,000, $58,000 range. So that's a full grade point lower. This is like, so this basically, somebody bought a 7.0 blue label for the price of a 6.0 blue label. So somebody got a really good price on this. Generally, you'll see like almost a doubling of effect with those higher grades for these books. Somebody got a steal. That's all I can say. There's 120 of these on the census, and 80 of them are universal blue labels. Number 5 on the list is Superman number 1. This is from DC Comics, 1939. Lots of DC on this list, I have to say. This was a Joe Shuster cover, and it's actually the origin of Superman retold. And it also is the first appearance of Ma and Pa Kent. Now, this is an interesting book because it's actually the first time a superhero gets their own complete comic, like where a comic titled with their name and that is totally devoted to them. That was a new concept, actually. But it inspired many, many solo titled comics in the future. This was a 5.0 restored book, and it sold for $60,000. Now, the previous record for this book was $61,900. So it's slightly down from where it sold for in June of 2023. So a little bit down from that previous one. But there was a more recent sale after that record for $48,000 in September of 2024. So just last month, where it sold for $48,000. So this is actually up and kind of reconfirming that previous high record. So that's actually a good thing. Now, if you ever wondered how much does a blue label go for, this is a restored copy. Well, how much would a blue label go for? Well, a 6.0, or not, sorry, a 5.0 blue label had a sale of $675,000 in January of 2023, and there was actually that one actually was on the down because there was actually a $720,000 sale in May of 2020. So, May 2022. So, yeah, so the prior year. So this book had been, is a pretty expensive book in a blue label. It's a bit of a bargain when you get it restored, about 1/10 of the value. So this is why actually I recommend restored books, because you can buy really big books for incredible deals, like 1/10 of the blue label price. There's 184 of these on the census, and 77 of them are universal blue labels. Number 4 on the list is Suspense Comics number 3. This is from Continental, 1944. It is an Alex Schomburg cover. It's probably his most desired cover as well. This is actually the most expensive comic outside of the superhero genre. Um, and it's a classic cover with like these hooded figures, girl in bondage, hero just too late to get there in time. Typical Schomburg thing. And this was a 4.0 that sold, restored copy, and it sold for $82,225. So $82,225. The previous record for this book was set back in September of 2024 for $45,600. So massive sale for this book. I think people were, again, people chose their battles. Sensation, not so much. This one, somebody really wanted. Now, the Blue Label 5.0, just to give you a sense of how much of a record this is, the Blue Label 5.0 sells for, last sold in March of 2020 for $52,800. So this actually sold more, like $30,000 more than the higher grade Blue Label. So that's a pretty massive sale. Really cool book though. There are 43 of these on the census, and 26 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 3 on the list is Captain America Comics number 1. This is from Timely 1941. Is a Jack Kirby cover, and it's the first appearance of Captain America, Bucky, the Red Skull, and it is a great classic cover with Captain America punching Hitler. It's also the first appearance of the triangle shield that Captain America used, but last appearance as well. So he went to a circular shield later on. So, and it's also actually one more first in it that is not usually mentioned, but I'm going to mention it. It's actually the first time that they mentioned the super soldier serum. Say that 5 times fast. Super soldier serum. Okay. So yeah, just a really cool little first as well. This was a 3.5 that sold, and it sold for $125,000. And that's actually a record, but not really a record, and I got to explain that. The previous record for this book was set back in November of 2021 for $240,000. But that was a pedigree copy. And that pedigree actually had slipped in value. The last sale for that same pedigree was in June of 2023 for $168,000. However, there was a Blue Label with no pedigree. Which is similar to the one that just sold. That sold in November of 2018 for $102,000. So this is an increase from the prior Blue Label. It's down compared to the pedigrees, but pedigrees sometimes get a little bit more value. It's interesting that they would get that much more value, but maybe people really like their pedigrees. To me, in this kind of case, I wouldn't think it would make that much of a difference, but it did. So there's 197 of these on the census, and 96 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 2 on the list is Marvel Comics number 1, and this was the October cover, and that's really important to note. I'll get into it. This is from Timely 1939. It is a Frank Paul cover, and is the first appearance of the Human Torch, also a Khazar and Angel, and a Jungle Terror, and it's the second Submariner appearance as well. And it's also the very first Timely comic, so this is where Marvel Comics started from. This was an interesting one because this is the October cover, and the October cover, there's actually October cover and a September cover, November cover, I should say. The November cover is basically a reprint. It's the very first reprint of a comic, but it was just, there was that much demand for this comic that there was a reprint. So yeah, so it's like the October one is the more desired one because it is the first printing. This was a 1.0 that sold, and it sold for $163,300. Now that is a massive sale because the previous record for this actual same book was set back in May of 2018 for $52,580. So about 3 times. It's gone up 3 times from that prior sale. Now the interesting thing was I actually looked at that prior sale, and it's the same book, but they actually got it reslabbed. And when they got it reslabbed, they actually had it denote that it was the October issue. So I think they were trying to, really accentuate the fact that it was an October copy. And that might add some more to the value. And obviously it sold for 3 times what it had in the past. There are 69 of these on the census, and 36 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 1 on the list, drum roll. This one's a big one. Detective Comics number 27. This is from DC Comics, 1939. It's a Bob Kane cover, and it's the first appearance of Batman and Commissioner Gordon. Just a classic book. This is like probably, after Action Comics number 1, the most desired comic of all. This was a 7.0 restored copy, and it sold for $336,454.35. So we'll round that somewhere. But yeah, so I thought that was really funny, that 35-cent thing. This was actually down. This one actually, bit of a loss on this one because oh wait, let me see. Yeah, the previous restored copy sold for $384,000 in September of 2022. And if you're wondering how much would a Blue Label go for, well, Blue Label would go for $1.5 million, which was the last sale back in 2020. So maybe even closer to $2 million now. So this was way down from that prior record. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Down $50,000 actually. Maybe people are focusing on other books. I'm not sure. There's these ones, just you don't see them that often. I think they made a mistake really having just too much for people to go after. There was a ton of books on this on that auction. I had about 50 or 60 like that I would have loved to have bought, and that sold for fairly amazing prices, fairly cheap prices actually. I wish I had paid attention to this auction a bit more. So yeah, there's only 80 Detective Comics 27 on the census, and 37 of them, less than half, are Blue Labels. So that was the list. What did you think? What did you buy anything from this massive auction? Just there was some big books that sold for very, very inexpensive prices, and some major records. It was all over the place. Just a really cool sale. And I'd love to hear people's thoughts on it, and put those in the comments below. And thanks again for watching. Bye for now.